Hey everybody, so today we are going to discuss the life and the legacy of Marilyn Monroe. She has just fascinated audiences for decades. She was a blonde bombshell that just rocked Hollywood to its core. The rumors of her and the Kennedys, they've drawn people in for decades, and in her life and now in her death, she's still of the utmost interest. To begin with today, we are going to discuss Marilyn as a child. She was born June 1st, 1926 to the late Gladys Pearl Baker. She was actually born Norma Jean, and in 1956 she legally changed her name to Marilyn Monroe. She just didn't relate to the name Norma Jean. She thought it reminded her of her horrible childhood, and she just felt empowered with the name Marilyn Monroe. She would go through 12 foster homes as a child, and for a short time even lived in an orphanage. And at the age of 8, she was sexually abused in one of those foster homes. The Grant Wong, writer of Who Was the Real Marilyn Monroe, writes that after Baker, which is Marilyn Monroe's mother, was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and institutionalized in 1934, a family friend by the name of Grace Goddard would take charge of Marilyn's upbringing. So Marilyn's early years, they were not full of glamour, but she hoped that things would start to look up as she got older. And according to Lauren Adharv, author of Marilyn Monroe Through the Years, she married her 21-year-old neighbor, James Daughtry. She was 16 years old at the time, and she married him on June 19th, 1942, in the hopes of not being sent back to the orphanage. Grace and her husband were moving up west, and they just couldn't take Marilyn with them. Daughtry was a merchant marine, and he was stationed at Santa Catalina Island boot camp in 1943, and a year later he would be shipped out to the Pacific, where he would remain for 2 years. They divorced on September 13th, 1946. At that time, Marilyn was modeling, which James did not approve of. She was modeling with the Blue Book Model Agency and landed a contract with Fox. It was very short term. She had a few appearances in some movies, but ultimately ended up unemployed again, which led to her returning back to modeling for photographers. She posed nude for a calendar, and that photo led to her role in the 1948 film Scooter Hoo, Scooter Hey. In 1950, she appeared in The Asphalt Jungle and All About Eve, which won her a contract from Fox. And that just started a succession of so many movies, which advanced her to a fostered image as a love goddess. And on January 14th, 1954, she married famous baseball player Joe DiMaggio. That would be a very short-lived marriage, as Marilyn would file for divorce just 9 short months later. And then on July 1st, 1956, Marilyn would marry playwright Arthur Miller. They would be married for 5 years before divorcing on January 20th, 1961. The 2022 Netflix documentary, The Mystery of Marilyn Monroe, The Unheard Tapes, claims that Monroe was pregnant 3 different times, in 1956, 1957, and 1958. All 3 would end up in miscarriage. In 1960, Marilyn was cast in The Misfits. It was a different role than what she normally did. It was much more dramatic, and this role in this film would be the last film that she ever completed. According to Amy Tikkanen, author of Marilyn Monroe, American Actress, she began filming her 13th film, which was a comedy by the name of Something's Got to Give, in 1962. She would be absent due to illnesses and would travel to a gala in May for President Kennedy, where she famously sang him happy birthday. Most thought they were having an affair, but then in June she was fired from that film, but later rehired, but they never started filming again. Most like to believe that Marilyn had it all, but we can see from what we've already discussed today that that just wasn't true. She had a very rough life, and unfortunately met a tragic end at 36 years old, when she died in her Brentwood, California home on August 4th, 1962. Alex Gurley, writer for People and author of Marilyn Monroe's Death, Her Sudden Passing and Its Aftermath, says at the time that Marilyn was under the constant care of doctors and psychiatrists who had prescribed her numerous medications to treat her health issues and insomnia. Her death was ruled an overdose and probable suicide, but the official cause of death was acute barbiturate poisoning. The toxicologist determined that she had taken a lethal overdose of nimbutyl and a drug called chlorohydrate. The mysterious circumstances that just surround her death, they fostered so many conspiracy theories. Many believe that the Kennedy family might have had something to do with her death because she was rumored to have had an affair with President John F. Kennedy and the U.S. Attorney General, his brother, Robert Kennedy. Whether that's true, we don't know. Her psychiatrist is the one who found her, Dr. Ralph Greenson, on August 5th, 1962. He broke a window to get into her room and found her nude, face down with a telephone in one hand and pill bottles just scattered around the room. According to the People's Report, Alex Gurley, Peter Lawford spoke to Marilyn on August 4th because she failed to show up for dinner. And he said that her speech was slurred, and the last thing she said to him was, "Say goodbye to Pat, say goodbye to Jack," which is President Kennedy, "and say goodbye to yourself, because you're a nice guy." So even in death, the world just can't leave her alone. Ben Child of The Guardian reports that the burial plot above Marilyn has more than 20 offers and the starting bid at $500,000. And the headline for that eBay ad read, "Spend eternity directly above Marilyn Monroe." So as we come to an end with the life and the death of Marilyn Monroe, I want to leave you with something she once said. "Sometimes I think it would be easier to avoid old age, to die young, but then you'd never complete your life, would you?" She never got to complete that life, but that's also why she remains forever young.